As I shared with you yesterday, today is a special holiday, and we want to take some time to make sure we discuss this holiday and why it is that it is celebrated inside of American culture. So, this is a holiday that is very specific to American culture, meaning that it's not going to be celebrated inside of other countries. It is going to be celebrated inside of America. This holiday is called Veterans Day. And a veteran is a person who has served in the armed forces. So any of the 5 branches that we have, the Air Force, the Navy, the National Guard, the Army, or the, oh goodness, I just forgot it. Air Force, Navy, National Guard. Well, goodness gracious, I'm forgetting that 5th one. Let's look that up together. I'll share my screen with you, or if you remember, you can correct me. Let's see. Branches of the military. We don't want to leave anyone out. There we go. Yes, our Coast Guard. I'd forgotten our Coast Guard. So the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. And now we have a Space Force as well. These are people who have served to protect our country by giving their time and their energy into this service group. So these are people who may or may not have fought in a war. These are people who may or may not had to live in another country to help keep America safe. But these are people who have made a lot of sacrifices. They have given up their time. They have spent time away from their family in order to help keep other families safe inside of America. So we want to make sure that we take time today to honor these veterans. And honor means to take time to remember and think about and to say thank you to them. So in order for us to start, we're going to go ahead and watch a little bit of a video that's going to give us some background knowledge on what Veterans Day is. When we're done, I'm going to give you an opportunity to go into some breakout rooms because I'm already receiving great messages in the chat. And I'm already seeing hands pop up, and I'm sure that it's going to be about people telling me about their family members and people they know that are veterans. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to share about that because I know that it can be very, something that you're very proud of. So first, let's go ahead and start out by watching this background knowledge video about Veterans Day. And then we will go ahead and go into some breakout rooms so that you can share your stories of your family and friends that are also inside of our armed forces. Okay? Here we go.
Aren't you a little old to be playing with army men? Dear Tim and Moby, I'm confused. I thought we celebrated soldiers on Memorial Day. What's Veterans Day for? From Erwin. It's easy to mix up these 2 national holidays. They both honor the men and women of our armed forces. Memorial Day in late May is dedicated to soldiers who died in combat. It's a time to remember the fallen heroes who gave their lives for our country. Veterans Day is how we honor all those who've served in wars or during peacetime. That's what veteran means, someone who served in the military. That includes the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. Former Reserve and National Guard troops are included too. On Veterans Day, we pay tribute to them with parades, ceremonies, and other public festivities. America has well over 20 million vets. Many have seen combat in war zones around the world. From stopping Hitler's march across Europe in World War II, to more recent struggles in the Middle East. But the origins of Veterans Day can be traced back to World War I. The fighting formally stopped in 1918 on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. That's why Veterans Day always falls on November 11th. Only back then, it was called Armistice Day. Armistice, a truce or ceasefire, referred to the German surrender that ended the war. It was a chance to celebrate peace in Europe after years of devastating battles. Over time, it evolved into a day to thank the vets who helped maintain the peace. American troops are in over 150 countries around the world. Some provide security for people living in unsafe areas. Others are on peacekeeping missions to prevent war from erupting. The military also runs counter-terrorism operations, stopping attacks before they happen. But not all servicemen and women are in the line of fire. Some distribute aid to those affected by natural disasters. Thousands more are permanently based overseas to protect allies like South Korea. Veterans Day was born out of a desire to show gratitude for all that our soldiers do. When soldiers are deployed or sent somewhere on a mission, they have to put their lives on hold. They spend months away from loved ones, often in harsh conditions. Under stressful circumstances, they have to maintain discipline and be ready to leap into harm's way at a second's notice. Casualties are an unavoidable part of life in the military. Many vets return home with severe injuries or permanent disabilities. Some even have conditions that require constant medical attention. The Department of Veterans Affairs, or VA, is in charge of caring for our vets. They help them cope with injuries, both physical and mental. Dealing with high-stress situations day in and day out can take its toll. Many soldiers witness disturbing violence. They lose close friends and work in terrifying conditions. Some vets have a difficult time dealing with those kinds of memories, which can make it hard to re-enter civilian life. There are actually lots of ways to show your support. First of all, be sure to attend a Veterans Day parade in your area. Just seeing you out there will mean a lot. You can help raise money for a charity devoted to our armed forces. Or visit an older veteran and learn about their personal history. They're part of a tradition that dates back to the beginning of our nation. Most of our founding fathers were veterans of the Revolutionary War, and more than half of all U.S. presidents served in the military. That's admirable, but you have to be a resident and human to join the armed forces, and also be able to take orders. Okay, why don't you start by cleaning up this mess? That's what I thought.
That's going to give you some background knowledge about why we celebrate Veterans Day and who it is that we're celebrating. This is a video that's going to show you some real life veterans and some celebrations that have happened around our world. Now, obviously these celebrations were pre-COVID, so this year's celebration is going to be very different, but it doesn't mean that we can't say thank you and show our appreciation to our veterans.
Soldiers from wars both old and new march down city streets. Flags hang from homes, businesses, even car antennas. Ceremonies remember those who dutifully served their nation. It's Veterans Day, or Remembrance Day, as it's known in much of the world, a time to honor members of the armed forces. And it all began in a railroad car with a document to end the war to end all wars. World War I, also known as the Great War, shocked the global community with its unprecedented toll in human life. Untold millions were killed. Germany was running low on manpower and supplies, so they agreed to sign an armistice, or truce, in the French commander Ferdinand Foch's private rail car. On the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, all was quiet on the Western Front. The fighting had ended. Exactly 1 year later, President Woodrow Wilson decreed that Americans should observe a moment of silence at 11 a.m. to remember the armistice and to embrace the peace. Other Allied nations commemorated the peaceful anniversary as well. In England and Canada, citizens wore paper poppies. Poppies had become a symbol of the armistice. The poem Flanders Field described a one-time battlefield. In Flanders Field, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row. In America, the nation's first unknown soldier was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery on Armistice Day, 1921. He was a casualty of the Great War. Since that first memorial, other unknown soldiers from America's wars have been interred in the tomb. And it's become tradition for the president or one of his representatives to lay a wreath on the monument every November 11th. A resolution was passed in 1926 inviting all Americans to remember Armistice Day and the soldiers who fought so hard for peace. The idea caught on. By 1938, the day was marked with so many ceremonies and parades Congress made it a legal holiday, giving people the day off work. After World War II and the Korean War, Americans wanted to open up the holiday to include not just World War I veterans, but all who served in combat. In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower, a World War II vet himself, legally changed the U.S. Armistice Day to Veterans Day, honoring those who served in all American wars. For a brief time starting in 1971, Congress moved the holiday to the fourth Monday in October, giving Americans a 3-day weekend. But most people rejected the idea. The traditional date of November 11th, the anniversary of the Great War's ceasefire, was too historically important to forget. President Ford reversed the law in 1975, returning Veterans Day back to its rightful date. Over the decades, the holiday has changed with the times. Originally, it was a call for world peace. Then in the U.S., it became a day to remember war veterans. Today, Veterans Day is set aside to honor not just those who served in war, but also those who have served their nation in peace.
Alrighty, so that's kind of the history of Veterans Day and why we celebrate it. It started out after World War I as a day to honor veterans who served during this war. And then as we heard in 1954, about 70 years ago, it was changed to honor all veterans who have ever been in any of our armed forces. So this is just a time to say thank you and to recognize the sacrifice that is made by these men and by these women. I am noticing that we have quite a few people still in the chat that are wanting to share their stories. So I'm going to set up some breakout rooms for you to be able to tell about people in your life who are veterans and to share any stories that you would like to share about those people in your life. Okay, so I'm going to send you these breakout rooms. Before I do, I can share with you mine. I've had a couple people ask. I have several veterans that I celebrate in my life. The first is my grandfather. My dad's dad was a veteran who served in the Vietnam War. He has since passed, but he was a career military man, so he was in for over 20 years. He spent the majority of his life in some type of service. The second that I celebrate is my uncle. My uncle Bruce also served in the war, and he was able to also make a career out of his entire time. He served in the military for 37 years, so he was in for a very long time as well. And then the third that I celebrate is my husband, Jeremiah. My husband was in the Air Force. He served actively in the Air Force for 5 years. He served in the reserves for 1 year. So he served in the Air Force as well. He never saw a war. He served during peace, but he was stationed in Japan for 2.5 years of his life on the Japanese Air Force base that we have. So those are my veterans that I am celebrating today and that I am saying thank you to. I'm excited for you to have the opportunity to share any veterans that you may have in your own life. So here are your invites to go ahead and share your stories. There you are. So as we know, we are currently in the middle of a global pandemic with COVID, but that does not mean that we cannot still show our gratefulness toward people who are veterans in our lives. So make sure if you have someone in your family or a close friend who's a veteran that you send them a message of some kind. I've sent some text messages this morning myself. I've also made some Facebook messages to people in my life that I would like to celebrate. So make sure you say thank you to these people. A lot of times people don't agree with war, and that's okay. I'm actually a person who doesn't always agree with war, but that doesn't mean that I'm not still thankful for the fact that people chose to sacrifice their time and their lives to be able to fight for my freedom. So we want to make sure that we honor these people who have made these sacrifices selflessly for us. All right. So make sure that you take time to thank a veteran around you, someone that you know in your family, a close friend, or even a stranger that you might see one day inside of a grocery store that might be in uniform, something like that. Just say thank you to that person and they'll know what you mean. All right.